actually, how are they packaged? How are they packaged inside your specific objectives? Because that's how we set off at that point. That is one. On page, let's go to your thesis on page 10, please. On page 10 of your thesis, you talk about the power consumption and the global power consumption and things like that. What I want to know, what I want to ask from you is what is the total power consumption or consumed globally? Maybe if you could mute first, when I finish, you can talk because you're generating a lot of noise. So what I'm simply asking is, what is the total power consumed, whether it is renewable or non-renewable? What is the total power consumed globally? I need that. Then when we move on to, I think, page 95, is it page 95? Yeah. I think page 90, sorry, not 95, it's page 90. On page 90. Sorry, on page 75, not 90, page 75 of your thesis. I think Dr. Talai has tried to raise something about it also, about the increase in temperature with increase in energy. But then my question is, you tell us that the relationship is not conclusive. If it's not conclusive, then how credible is the results that you are presenting to us? How credible is it? And I want to tie that to page 90 as one question also. I want to tie that to page 90 of your thesis. And when I tie to page 90 of your thesis, what I want to ask on page 90 of your thesis, you tie to that particular question, is that you gave us the performance over years. And then you just said indicating potential improvements due to enhanced maintenance practices, component replacement, and favorable weather conditions. Is there data to support? You mentioned the report, but that particular information is not provided here to support your argument, because then you have to reframe that you already have a background knowledge at that particular point. So please, back to you, Nelias. Unmute, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for those questions. So on the first question, which was the relationship between my problem statement and my specific objectives, my problem statement highlighted a need for technical evaluation of this power plant as it will help to identify factors affecting its outputs. And this was also attributed to different factors, such as environmental factors affecting the plant outputs. So my specific objectives were addressed this by, one, computing the technical performance of these power plants, such as the performance ratio, capacity factor, array yield, and final yield of the power plants. The other thing it did, I did a relationship between the irradiance of the specific area with the energy output collected, and this was seen to be directly related. And on the next objective, on other different factors affecting these power plants, which were the wind speed, temperature, and wind speed and temperature that were considered in this study. I will respond this tied to the third question you asked that says the relationship is not conclusive and how credible these results are. I highlighted that there were more factors affecting the energy output of this power plant, and also the fact that the data that I used, the data for the cell temperature, the temperature data and wind speed data that I used in this in this objective were collected from NSRDB database and the PVGIS database might not have reflected the actual weather on the power plant, and also considering this was the average output of the power plant, which was varying from this slide, we were able to see that the energy output was not consistent. From this, we were able to see that the energy output of this power plant was not consistent for every month. So using an average temperature would not have been applicable, or will not did not give me a conclusive result.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Mkubwa, you want to probe that, or you are good?
Yeah. Let me probe that, Prof. Thank you. So you've just brought out clearly, and we've seen the geographical locations, the things like grid integration, maintenance operations have not been touched at that point. Although you talk about maintenance and operation, but you don't use maintenance and operation as a factor in your model to actually do your simulation so that we can realize how does the maintenance and operations affect. You only go and touch at it in passing towards your conclusion that actually this has been attributed to by maintenance and operations, the weather conditions and things like that, without approval evidence or some data or some reference to support your arguments at the end of the day. So that is something that you have to bring out clearly in your report when you do the corrections. You can go on, please.
I want to say that operation and maintenance was slightly considered in the soiling losses, the 5% soiling losses that was considered. Okay. So I'll move on to the next question. That was on the total power consumed globally. I don't have the exact figure for the total power consumed globally, but I will assume we are at 1,000 terawatt hours at this point or more.
That was my problem with your page 4 of your literature survey, because what you are doing at that particular point, you can just mute a little bit. What you're doing at that particular point, you're opening us into the literature survey. You're telling us how deep you went into your review to actually solidify the ground for your argument and therefore your research. But then the figures you're giving us are not correct. Because if we pick up in 2023, the total global consumption was 17 times 10 to power 4 terawatt hours. And in 2023, if you check clearly, actually in 2022, from the Ember Energy and also from what we call as the International Renewable Energy Group, in 2022, they put the total energy, renewable energy, to be around 8,440 terawatt hours. So if you are telling us that this is 1.49 gigawatts and 1.017 gigawatts, and you tell us that we are nearing 50% of the total power consumed, then that information is not correct. So that is something that you actually have to check and also verify the sources. So we have credible sources where you can get this information, and I've just mentioned one of it, like the International Renewable Energy Group. You can also look at another group, which we call as the International Energy Agency. They'll have all that data for you so that then you can present credible data at that particular point. So that alone will not be right. And also sometimes don't just say we are nearing 50%. It's also good sometimes to come up with figures and then justify you're nearing to 50% at that particular point. Thank you very much. You can move to the next question.
Thank you. I think the next question was about page 90.
Page 78 and page 90, 78 and 90.
Could you please repeat the question?
You didn't write it down. On page 78, I asked you, you gave us the relationship, and then you told us that all the factors were not included. And therefore, you yourself also, you can't have a conclusive, actually, answer to whatever discussion you are giving us. So I asked, how credible was that at the end of the day? Your results you're presenting at that particular point. And on page 90, I tied that to page 90 because it also has to do with the factors considered. And then it talked about the PR and the CUF increasing or decreasing, sorry, and then eventually increasing. And you're talking about the different weather conditions without a backup to show that actually this information is from here. So there is information supporting your argument at that particular point. So I think that was my question. Okay.
I understand your question, yes. So I agree with you. The inconclusive relationship does not help this research. I think getting actual data for these years that had declined, actual temperature data for this would have helped give a conclusive answer for this. And the decline in output I could also get data showing how the temperature decreased or increased around those times. But I can attach a report from REREC that shows that around these times they had so many corrective maintenance that was being performed, leading to decrease, and also the reports showing how many operation and maintenance activities were done through this time as compared to the other consecutive years of 2022-2023, showing that operation and maintenance led high and effective operation and maintenance leads to higher energy outputs. So I can give that.
Okay, so please just make sure that that information is included so that then you give us a complete report and conclusions which are actually supported by the reports that you have. Thank you very much, Nelias, for your answers. Chair, please,
Yes.
I take it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mkubwa, for that. Maybe the other thing that I would, on what you have said, to advise Nelius is when certain circumstances don't allow you to get data or to give certain conclusions, then you report that in your limitation. Yeah. So that we are aware that there were certain limitations that did not make it possible for you to get certain data or something. Stephen Obura. Steve.
Chair, thank you. I'm around. I'm available. Nelias Maina, thank you for the presentation. Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I hope the candidate can also hear you.
Nelias, are you able to hear me?
I'm able to hear you clearly, Dr. Obura.
Thank you. So thank you, Chair, and thank you, Nelias, for the presentation. That was nice. I have a few questions, about three. Actually, most of them have been tackled by Dr. Talai. Now, the first question that I would ask is that technical performance and assessment of solar plants have actually been carried out. And if you go to literature, you'll find out that most formulas are available for calculations of performance ratios, capacity factor, array yield, all those are available. Now, my question is, what actually would you say is the contribution to your work? What actually is your contribution? Then at number two, based on your analysis, now that you've done that analysis at Garissa, why would you say REREC preferred Garissa as the location for for that plant and not anywhere else in Kenya? So that is the second question. Why do you think they chose Rerek and not possibly Kisumu, not Mombasa, and not any other place in Kenya? The other one, again, that Talai talked about is with regards to your slides number 19 and 20. And your response concerning the trends of those graphs was not very convincing. If it was about COVID, that was 2021, then why is it that we are still having a lower output in 2023? For example, there was a problem in 2019 and 2021, and probably that would have extended to 2022. Now, at 2023, we would expect that the production has gone back to where it was intended to be. But still, we can see that the output is still low, although the trend is increasing. So your response to that was not very convincing. Then again, also against the also about the tilt angle. Again, that was also asked by Dr. Talai, and probably you don't even have to go into that now. Now, actually, with regards again to slide number 19 and number 20, now that there's been reduction in the output, the efficiency of the system, now that there was a reduction in the performance of the system, would you say, according to your analysis, that there was a problem with the location of that power plant in Garissa? Or was there something else apart from the location? And finally, in your recommendation, you've said that you prefer that batteries are included in the system to store excess power. Now, my understanding is that the introduction of batteries normally, under normal circumstances, drastically increases the cost of investment and also reduces the return on investment. So why would you give such kind of suggestion? Why would you suggest the inclusion of batteries? I think those are my only questions.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Onyango Bura. Nelias, you respond to those ones.
Thank you, Dr. Onyango. First, you asked a question on the contribution of this study to the literature review. I'd like to address this by saying that the performance of solar PV plants are site-specific, and I couldn't find data showing the performance of solar PV plants in Garissa. And this being a very big solar power plant, we would want to understand the performance of this power plant in this specific location and how the performance is relating to the expected generation for the investors to understand this.
Okay.
Yes, and second, the second question was based on my analysis, why did REREC choose Garissa? So from my literature review, Kipra was able to report that Kenya boasts an insolation of 4 to 6 kilowatt hour per meter squared per day. Garissa, from the analysis, I was able to find that the Garissa has a reference yield of 6.06. This is very high. I think when they saw this high insolation, they were convinced Garissa is the area. And secondly, I think land availability. Garissa is less populated compared to other places. So I think they considered that when they were picking this land. Moving on to the third question, why the energy output was still lower in 2023 despite it increasing from 2022. I want to attribute this to the maintenance reports. Their maintenance reports that showed around this time they were starting to experience different corrective maintenance, including cable losses, including some inverters being offline, including ring main unit that was down. This was leading to almost 1.5 megawatt hours of DC power being lost. Yes, I want to attribute that to that. At the same time, I would like to check their maintenance records. Maybe the frequency of maintenance was reduced as well around this time. The other one was on the recommendation. Yes.
I think if they learned that there was a problem with maintenance and took it up and started maintaining the system, then we should be able to see in 2023 something that is closer to what we had in 2018. So that is not appearing there, and that is why I'm saying what you are explaining about the maintenance may not actually be very convincing.
I think this is mostly contributing to corrective maintenance.
Yes, there's a lot of noise from your end, but just struggle to respond to that one. Yeah, just struggle to respond so that we can get your position on that.
Okay, sorry about the noise. What is it is mostly attributed to corrective maintenance of the solar power plant, where different components of the system have been recorded to have faults that will take them some time before they corrected. So this led to energy loss around the year 2023.
I wish you were able to compare that data with data from elsewhere, but because you are only considering Garissa, maybe that was not possible. But because people, I mean, the same SEMROREC probably have some other solar plants elsewhere, and I'm sure the way they do maintenance in those other places is exactly the same as how they did it in Garissa. So if we could have compared probably with some other place and checked if the effect of COVID and that maintenance produced the same results, then we could agree. But this one is still not very convincing on my side. Maybe you will have to do a little investigation and check why that data was exactly the way it was. Then we can now go to the last one.
On your last question, you asked why I would recommend battery integration to this system.
Yes.
Yes, there is a cost implication to this, and this would reduce the return on investment, and also the the cost would increase on the cost of the batteries. But at the same time, introducing batteries to a system helps improve grid stability, as we see most renewable energy sources are intermittent, so they do not provide provide consistent power to the grid. So this leads to grid instability. But when you have a battery backup, you're able to provide consistent power to the grid. At the same time, since the Garissa always imports power from the grid to power their auxiliary systems, they could use this power from the batteries to power themselves, so hence reducing costs on the energy imported from the grid. I hope that's able to respond to your question.
Okay.
Although I'm not in agreement that the cost would reduce. I think the cost would further increase if you include batteries. But that's okay. You've done well, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Onyango Bura, for very insightful engagement with the candidates. We have about 4 minutes, but I will request the board that we will extend for the discussion of the board. But now I will ask the remaining members of the board to pose a question, one, if they have. I'll start with Dr. Jerry Ochola. If you have a question.
Chair, I have no question for the candidate. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Kipkoriri Emmanuel.
Okay, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Maina. Chair, I think I'll have only one question on data analysis, and I would begin with what is on screen. You're presenting basically the average energy output, and again, you're putting there a standard deviation. So, Chair, that could be misleading. Maybe a better way is really to indicate the standard deviation as an error bar, so that basically at the top of the blue is the mean. And then now, well, if you put an error bar, basically the standard deviation is plus or minus. So we should be really, there's an appropriate way of really indicating above the mean and below the mean as an error bar or the standard deviation. So that's my recommendation. Basically, I think the statistical part of the results should be looked so that at least really they are presented in an informative way.
Okay.
I just picked as an example, but it applies also to most of the results presented, even in slide number 20. If she can take us there. Slide number 20, you are indicating for 2019, I don't know now, that specific yield, is it for the whole year and whereby you're computing many values? So actually we should be giving the mean and also the variation within the mean with indication with the standard deviation appropriately plotted. I don't know whether she can respond to those.
Yes, quick, Nelias, you can respond to the concerns of Prof.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Professor. So on the representation of the data, yes, I understand it could be presented better, and thank you for the insights. I will consider adding a mean and a different error bar for the standard deviation to better depict these results. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Siage, do you have any concern?
No, Chair, I'm okay.
Thank you. So I'll open if there's
Chair, sorry,
anyone.
before we open, there's a quality assurance, Professor Cory Michael.
Oh, he's back, eh? Is he back?
Yeah, so yes.
Professor Korir, we had already dispensed with the issues of quality in our briefing meeting. I don't know if you we looked at the similarity index and it is okay. The words, the number of words are fine. She has already paid her fees and she has all marks for the coursework available. So if
Okay,
Professor
Chair,
Korir,
just
yes.
one question, if you don't mind, Chair.
Okay.
Her plans for dissemination.
Oh, okay.
Whether she has any plans for dissemination. Thank you.
Okay. Nelias, how are you going to disseminate your finding? How are you going to share your findings? Unmute.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I am in the process of writing an article for this research. I will be able to publish a few, maybe 2 articles about this research.
What about seminars and conferences?
Yes, if applicable, I will be able to attend some of those and present about my research.
Okay. And the policy level, you can share with the policymakers so that they can improve the operations. Thank you. Now, quickly, I'll open for 1 minute to the public. If there's anybody in the public with a quick comment or a quick question to fulfill our rules and regulations. If there isn't, as I can see, there isn't.
Chair,
Yes.
I see there is a former alumni, Dr. Regis Ambroso from Tanzania. Maybe give her a chance to say hi and maybe a comment. Then we move forward. If she has a question, maybe, yeah.
Okay, let him just say hi, because of the time. If he can decide to greet us or he can decide to ask a question. Yes, Doc, where are you? All right, I think he's not ready.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Professor Siage, and thank you very much, Nelias, for that. We've come to the end of this. We are going to discuss, and then we'll call you to give you the decision of the board. Thank you for a very interesting session, very interesting presentation. So we'll be back with you in a while. Maureen and Professor Siage, can you migrate us to the